In 1973, 8 completely sane people checked themselves into psychiatric hospitals. All 8 were admitted with a diagnosis. Not one of them was identified by a single doctor. This is the Rosenhan experiment, and it changed the way medicine looks at itself. David Rosenhan was a professor of psychology at Stanford, precise, methodical, with an unimpeachable reputation. In the early 1970s, he was preoccupied with a single question, not a clinical one, but a philosophical one. How does psychiatry tell the sick from the healthy? Not in theory, in practice. In a real hospital ward, standing in front of a living person, he decided to find out. Rosenhan selected 8 people, 3 women, 5 men. Among them were psychologists, a pediatrician, a psychiatrist, a painter, and a housewife. All were documented to be mentally healthy. Rosenhan himself joined the group. The instructions were simple. Call a psychiatric hospital and schedule an appointment. At the appointment, report one symptom. Voices in the head. The voices say words: empty, hollow, thud. Nothing more. No other complaints. After admission, behave completely normally. Simulate no symptoms. Answer questions honestly. Tell staff you feel fine. And wait! All 8 were admitted. 7 received a diagnosis of schizophrenia. 1 was diagnosed with manic-depressive psychosis. The average length of hospitalization was 19 days. The longest stay was 52 days. During that time, the pseudo-patients were collectively prescribed 2,100 pills. They didn't take them. They flushed them down the toilet. In some wards, real patients were doing the same thing. For the same reason, Rosenhan kept notes. He recorded everything that happened inside. The first thing he noticed, the staff did not see people. When a pseudo-patient approached a nurse with a question, she would walk past without stopping, sometimes without looking up. In one documented instance, he asked the same doctor the same question 10 times. The doctor never stopped. Each time he answered on the move, eyes elsewhere. Rosenhan called this the phenomenon of invisibility. Inside a psychiatric institution, a patient stopped being a person you spoke to. They became an object you observed. The second observation was more unsettling than the first. When pseudo-patients took notes, simply sitting and writing in a notebook, staff recorded this in their medical charts. Patient engages in writing behavior. Completely ordinary behavior became a symptom, not because it looked disturbed, but because the person already existed inside a system with a label attached. And everything they did was now filtered through that label. Rosenhan wrote, "A diagnosis does not describe a person. A diagnosis filters everything you see about them afterward." There was a third finding. The only people who regularly expressed doubt about the pseudo-patient's mental illness were the other patients. You're not crazy. You must be a journalist. You're checking up on this place. People with an official diagnosis saw what the medical staff could not, because they were looking at a human being, not at a file. When Rosenhan's paper was published in Science in January 1973, the reaction from the psychiatric community was sharp. The main objection: this is unfair. If a healthy person pretends to be sick and deceives doctors, what does that actually prove? Rosenhan agreed to run a second experiment. He informed several hospitals. Over the next 3 months, pseudo-patients would attempt to gain admission. He asked staff to identify them. Over 3 months, the hospitals admitted 193 patients. Of those, staff flagged 41 as likely pseudo-patients. Another 42 were flagged by at least one staff member. Rosenhan had sent no pseudo-patients. It was a closed loop. In the first experiment, the system could not find the sane among the sick. In the second, it could not find the sick among the sane. The diagnosis was not determined by the person's condition. It was determined by the context in which they appeared.